So I was sitting here thinking the other day about my very first t-shirt line I ever started. And it seems like eons ago it happened because I've been in the industry so long now. But that very first t-shirt line I started, I made a lot of mistakes. And I figured today, this would be a good video to share some of those mistakes I made, because many of you out there are probably watching this video and are thinking of starting a t-shirt line, or you may be in the process of starting one. So sharing my pitfalls and mistakes I made might just help you not make the same mistakes. So let's discuss next here on Making the Brand. What's up, everybody? Rob Norman from Planet Brooklyn Academy Clothing Company, and this is Making the Brand, the series where I give you a little insider knowledge on how to start a clothing line, and if you already have one, how to make it better. As always, before we jump into things, please hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything we drop when it drops. So when I first started my very first t-shirt line, the very first mistake I made was not knowing who my target audience was. I had an idea. So being that my background is in graphic design, so in school, in college, I got my degree in graphic design. And the thing is that with graphic design, you're designing on a computer screen, you're able to use all these different, colors and things like that. I never really thought about how that translates when you get to fabrics. So the first thing I did was I had an idea of this t-shirt I wanted to do, actually a series of t-shirts I wanted to do. And again, the first thing I didn't do was think about my target audience. I didn't know who I was marketing to. I was thinking about what I thought was cool and what I thought the market would like. And the market that I was targeting at the time was women. So I had this idea for these 3 t-shirts for women. Did not ask anybody. I did not say, hey, let me see what people think. Now, when I was starting my t-shirt line, this was way before there was YouTube and there was Instagram or any of that. Today, you guys can actually take your products and mock them up and go on social media and ask people, like, what do you think? So you can get a gauge on whether this would work or if it didn't. I didn't have that luxury, but I could have easily printed it out and showed it to friends and asked other people what they thought about it. But I didn't do that. I just assumed that what I thought was cool was automatically going to sell. And I created these shirts that I thought women would like. Now, women did like the t-shirt. The problem was that the content and the concept of it was something that they didn't particularly want to wear. They thought it was cute and funny, but it wasn't something they wanted to wear. And I didn't take that into account. So this is a problem. This was a major problem, because when I graduated from college, what I did was I went to the bank and I took a loan out for $1,500. That $1,500 I used to start my t-shirt line. And I blew basically all the money to produce these 3 shirts. Now, one of the things I learned one of the big mistakes I made was that I printed up all these shirts without test marketing anything, and ended up having all these shirts just stacked up in my house. Barely moved any of these shirts. So again, I learned that I didn't have a target market. And the other thing I learned was that you're not designing for yourself. Whatever you're creating, if you're trying to sell, you're trying to sell it to a consumer. If you're trying to sell it or design it for yourself, you're only going to sell one item. If you're trying to design it and sell it to the masses, you're going to sell a lot. So don't try to think about what you like. You need to think about what the consumer wants. And you can interject your concepts and ideas into it. But at the end of the day, you're trying to sell to someone else. So whoever you're selling to, you need to know what they like, what they're into. So that was things I didn't take in consideration. So another issue I had was I chose colors, shirt colors, that weren't, things that women liked at that time. It wasn't the right color, wasn't the right color combinations. So I lost on that front. The other thing that happened was that, again, coming from a graphic design background and understanding that I can put as many colors as I want on a screen or on paper does not translate the same onto clothing, because when you start creating t-shirts, you can't put all the colors of the world on it. Well, you can kind of today, but back then you couldn't. Back then everything was strictly like screen printing. You could do heat transfers, but heat transfers back in the day was not the same as it is today. Heat transfer back in the days felt like you had a weight on your chest. Like it was heavy, it was thick. It looked like, you can tell it was a transfer. Like you could see a white outline around it. Nowadays, you can barely tell the difference between a heat transfer and a screen print. I get them both done at our factories, and sometimes I can't tell them apart. Like, they're that good these days, but back in the days they weren't. So basically, you either went with traditional screen printing, or you might have done heat transfers, but mostly everybody did silk screening. So I thought that, I can print all these colors and put them on a shirt. So one of the first t-shirts I did, I had like 4 colors printed on the front, 2 colors on the sleeve, 1 color on the back, all silk screen. The price for that was outrageous, and I had to sell it at a crazy high price because I needed to make back the cost on those shirts. So I lost money on that front also, not understanding that I can do other things to, lower my overhead. And the beauty of working with a print facility, which there are pros and cons today of being able to just go online and find somewhere to print a shirt. It's great. You can go to anybody online. You can find someone to print your graphics. It's easy. But what I recommend is that you actually sit with a factory. If you can find a factory that you can go to and get your stuff printed, go there and actually work with the factory, because you will learn so much from them. I was blessed to have, a factory that I worked with when I first started my t-shirt line. I looked up online. I found this printer. Actually, I didn't look up. It was actually a friend of mine's who was doing t-shirts. They recommended this printer to me. So I went and met with her, and my second go around at t-shirts, she refused to print any of my stuff because she says, I'm not going to take your money because you're wasting money. And she literally sat me down with each one of my designs and showed me how to cut corners, how to lessen the amount of money I was spending on my garments, because having 4 colors on the front of a shirt was not necessary. She was like, you can actually do a 1-color graphic, but the way you set up your graphic, it can appear to be 2 colors because the shirt would act as a secondary color showing through, the graphic. And I didn't think about that. So again, coming from a graphic design background, I had to look at things a little bit different than what I used to looking at things. So it gave me a better perspective of how, screen printing worked. So now I was able to print 2 colors on a shirt and now make it look like 3, or do 1 color and have it look like 2. So I was able to learn these little tricks. Also, big mistake I made was that did not realize I can print, my sizing on the inside of my shirts. So what I did was I spent money to have labels made. So when I went to the factory and said I need my labels sewn into the shirts, they would charge me a quarter to cut out the other labels and then stitch mine in there. Where nowadays you do tearaway labels, and now you can just heat press or heat stamp your sizing inside of it. Didn't have that before, but I could have silk screened that, and that could have saved me money. So I'm spending all this money to get labels made and get them sewn in. So this was another issue that I realized, that I was wasting money, and it took me time to learn. And like I said, my manufacturer that worked with me, she was so great because she really walked me through these steps. Now, another reason why working with a print facility is so much better than actually just going online and submitting things is because there are more techniques that you can do silk screening that most of you don't even know about. The thing is that today everybody does 1 of 3 things. They do heat transfers, they do DTG, or they just do straight screen print. That's the 3 things that everybody does. But what you don't realize is that there are so many other printing techniques out there that you can do that will really take your shirt game to another level. Like if you look up what lenticular printing is, lenticular printing is amazing. There's high density printing that you can do. There is plastisol, which is the standard that everybody uses, but there are different types of plastisols you can use as inks that you can do to print with. There are so many different things. You can do foil printing, which is also great because foil printing mixed with flocking, you can do flocking. So if you do flocking with foil printing, amazing techniques you can really come up with. And it was the beauty about working in the 90s. In the 90s, the urban brands like Echo and them, they really took full advantage of these printing techniques, and they tried these things out and made these garments look amazing. And now everybody's just on this straight, just screen print or heat transfers, and the graphics look great, but there's no dimensionality in them. And what they did in the 90s was so much more. So this is why I said, if you can sit with a printer and show them your graphic and show them what you want to do, they can tell you hey, we can mix these 2 things together. We can mix a flock and a foil together, or we can do high density with a lenticular printing, or we can mix it with a DTG along with a high density print. There's so many different things you can really do, especially silicone printing. Silicone printing is another one That's great because silicone doesn't burn, and it's rubber, so you can print it on a shirt. It's light, it doesn't burn, you can iron on it, and it won't do anything to it. So these are things that probably most of you don't even know about, but if you sit with a printer, they can tell you this. And I'm telling you now, if any of you take my word and go to a printer and sit with them, your t-shirt sales will go way up because you'll be the only ones doing this. You're not doing the typical, again, heat transfers or, you know, a DTG printing. You're doing something more. And this is something that I had to learn because, again, I was just so used to just screen printing. I learned that there were other ways that I can print and get the same, you know, type of, you know, quality, and also add a different kind of dimension to my graphics. So again, that was something I learned that I wish I would have learned in the beginning when I first started my t-shirt line, but inevitably I did learn it. One of the last mistakes that I made was also selling to stores. So when I first started, I wanted to get my stuff into stores. So I started taking them around to different locations, shops, and I would ask them to carry it. And I had like 3 stores initially that took on my product, but they did it as a consignment. So with consignment, what they normally do is that it's a win-win for both teams because, again, on consignment, if a store takes your stuff in, they don't pay you for it until like they'll give you a net 30. So a net 30 is like 30 days they'll pay you. So they'll put your stuff in the store for 30 days. And if it sells, when you come back, they give you money for it. And then they'll ask you for your next line. Now, if your line doesn't sell, they just give you back your product. You don't lose anything and they don't lose anything. So everybody walks away from the deal fine. So consignment can be good and it could be bad. In a sense, it was kind of a mixed bag for me because what I did was I went to 3 different stores showing my product, my t-shirts. And this is after I got past the initial t-shirts, the bad batch. This is now the better batch because I've learned from working with my manufacturer and everything, so I got better. So I went around to like 3 different stores and they decided to carry my stuff, which was great, but they all did it on consignment. The problem with that was that I took all my inventory and gave it to each one of the stores. I divided it up between the 3 stores. Now, when the 30 days came, I went to one store. They said, we loved it. We sold out of everything. They paid me. They says, now we want more. So give us some more product. I had no more product in-house because I gave the rest of the product to the 2 other stores. And then when I went to those stores, they sold out and they asked for more product. So even though they paid me, I now had to produce the next amount of stuff. So that took like 2-3 weeks, which is a bad thing because once they buy and they say, we love it, we want more, they normally want more stuff within the next week or so. And sometimes it took me 3 weeks. One store told me like, oh, we're sorry, we had to put somebody else in your place, but come back to us next month. We'll pick it up from you next month. So I was out of sales that I could have made. That was money I could have made had I thought of saying, let me keep some inventory in-house and see how it sells. If it sells well, I'll give them more. If it doesn't sell, now I can take this product and move it to the other store. So I didn't think about keeping stuff in-house. I just tried to get rid of all of it because my goal was like, get rid of it all because I don't want it sitting up in my house. Because I had a studio apartment, I had boxes up to the ceiling with all these shirts, but here are 3 stores that took it all off my hands and now they want more. And now I don't have the money, they just paid me. So now I gotta try to figure out how to get this stuff printed and get to them fast enough. So learning about keeping inventory and, and working on consignment was 2 things that I had to learn. So once I got past that, I got a little bit better with knowing how to set up a structure of when to give product to certain stores so that I had them kind of on a revolving door process. So as one paid me, the other one was receiving product and I was printing, and then the next one would get the other product. So I had them all on a different timetable, not all at one time getting product from me. So that was kind of the things that I learned, from my mistakes first starting my first t-shirt line. So again, when you're starting your t-shirt lines, just remember, 1, know who your target market is. 2, make sure you're marketing and you're designing for your audience, not for yourself. Make sure that you know like your techniques, what you're going to use, how do you make your product better, and also don't waste money. Don't waste money just because more isn't always better. We have a tendency to think that the most expensive t-shirt I buy and the high-end printing that I do, that is going to equate to more money. And a lot of times that's not the case. Sometimes simplicity is better and you can still have quality, but you can do better and cut corners in certain ways to just lower your overhead. Because again, you don't want to blow all your money out the gate when you first start. You want to slowly graduate and keep going up. Don't blow everything, because if it doesn't work, then you have nothing. So think about those things. So I hope that little story helped you guys and gave you some things to think about. If you have any questions or, about how I did a certain thing with my t-shirts, please leave those questions in the comment section below and I'll get to them as I always do. And again, thank you for tuning in. I'll drop another video next week. And for those of you who have been messaging me, yes, I am going to be doing a seminar. So there will be a Planet Brooklyn Making the Brand seminar. It will be a one-day seminar coming up this June. More details will come. I'll let you guys know in the following videos. But it will be in New York City, and it will be a one-day seminar that you guys can come to. And everything will be listed, as I said, in the next video too. I'll put that information in the bio and you guys can check it out, and there'll be a link to it. And again, I will go through all the steps of starting a clothing brand from beginning to end at this seminar. So you'll know everything, prices, location, time, all that will be in the upcoming videos. So just stay tuned. But that's it for this video. So I will catch you guys on the next video. So until then, stay cool. Peace.